Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Open Mic Night. Today is our February Open Mic Night, and welcome to you all. We're going to start with Sylvia.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to sing two little songs. I don't have to sing them both at once. We can do, one after the other. We can put them on a different part of the evening. I don't care. But the first one is my father's song. My father was a professional jazz musician all his life, starting at age 15 and going through until maybe 2 or 3 weeks before he died at age 85 or 86, I forget. And he was a trad jazz musician. This is traditional jazz, that like New Orleans jazz is an example of that. Dixieland jazz is a subcategory of trad jazz. There is, or at least was then, a large and thriving trad jazz community on the West Coast. And my father was a very respected member of that. And one thing about the trad jazz music tradition is that it would, for most of my life, it was a bunch of old guys, and it was all guys. Women were not musicians, and furthermore, singers were not musicians. They had a kind of a contempt for singing and singers, and like sometimes in order to please their public, they would hire a girl singer. This is how they referred to it, the girl singer. But she wasn't a musician. She was just, window dressing. If they didn't have a girl singer at a particular gig, sometimes one of the old guys would sing the song, and they would have little conversations like, Stan, why don't you sing that song tonight? And Stan would go, oh, God, do I have to? No, I don't. Why don't you sing it? Kind of thing. Very often, my father was the one who ended up getting assigned to sing a song because he actually did have an absolutely lovely voice. But he would always complain about it. Whether that complaint was sincere or not, I don't know. But he would always, kind of complain. Oh yeah, I've got to sing this. But the song that he was most often asked to sing and that was most associated with him was Just One More Chance, which was written, it became popular in 1931. And it occurred to me only very recently that I could sing that song. I had never sung it before. It was my father's song. So I decided I was going to sing that song. So I'm going to sing it. So we spend our lives in searching for happiness. I had it once and tossed it aside. I paid for it with hours of loneliness. I've nothing to hide. I'd swallow my pride for just one more chance to prove it's you alone I care for. Each night I say a little prayer for just one more chance. Just one more night to taste the kisses that enchant me. I'd want no others if you'd grant me just one more chance. I know the meaning of repentance. Now you're the jury at my trial. I had to start out. But now I'm back to cry my heart out for just one more chance.
That is so sweet. And I love the story behind it too. You always tell such wonderful stories. So I'm glad that you did, and to hear. I mean, I knew some about your father, but that's so interesting. How they referred to female singers back in the day, and how I had no idea that that was a thing that people felt that way. I mean, I'm guessing they weren't alone in that. It seems like that. I'm guessing that that was a kind of a common way of thinking. But
Well, I don't know. I mean, it was very much that way in the trad jazz community. It may
right,
not have been that way in other musical communities.
I was speaking to them. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I had no idea that that would have been how they would think about that. But I can see that. I can see how the female singers would bring in the patrons.
Yes.
So that was a song that, did you say that was a song that you remember hearing your father sing too?
It was the song that was most, he sang most often and was most associated with him.
Okay.
Let's get Pete to sing Just One More Chance.
I love it. I
Yeah.
like seeing the joy in your singing of it too, and it just seemed effortless,
Oh,
like
good.
in your cells.
So much fun to sing that finally after all these many years.
Yeah. You reclaim it. You own it as your own.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you. Yeah, let's come back. We'll come back to you for round two.
Yeah.
I like to do the round robin as much as we can. So, family band, are you
I'm gonna go
gonna
first.
go first?
Yeah. I'm doing the song Dos Oruguitas, or Two Little Caterpillars, from the new Disney movie Encanto. I just really liked this song. It's like at the end, it's a really beautiful part of the movie. It's just like a beautiful song. Um, so yeah, I'm I'm gonna do that one, and I'm gonna have my lovely
I'm
computer
gonna scroll.
tab scroller for me as well.
I'm gonna like turn the page.
Yeah.
New version of Page Turner.
Yes.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
scroller.
The scroller. Oh, also, I guess I should do a little like sound check. We have like the original sound on, but sound good? Fair enough.
As good as Zoom sounds.
Good enough.
Dos oruguitas enamoradas pasan sus noches y madrugadas llenas de hambre, siguen andando y navegando un mundo que cambia y sigue cambiando, navegando un mundo que cambia y sigue cambiando. Dos oruguitas paran el viento mientras se abrazan con sentimiento, siguen creciendo, no saben cuándo buscar algún rincón. El tiempo sigue cambiando, inseparables son. El tiempo sigue cambiando. Ay, oruguitas, no se aguanten más. Hay que crecer, aparte y volver. Hacia adelante seguirás. Vienen milagros, vienen crisalidas. Hay que partir y con Ay, oruguitas, no se aguanten más, hay que crecer, partir y volver. Hacia adelante seguirás, vienen milagros, vienen crisalidas, hay que partir y construir su propio futuro. Dos oruguitas desorientadas en dos capullos bien abrigadas con sueños nuevos, ya solo falta hacer lo necesario en un mundo que sigue cambiando, tumbando sus paredes. Ahí viene nuestro milagro. Ay, mariposas, no se aguanten más, hay que crecer, partir y volver. Hacia adelante seguirás, ya son milagros. Rompiendo crisalidas, hay que volar, hay que encontrar su propio futuro. Ay, mariposas, no se aguanten más, hay que crecer, partir y volver. Hacia adelante seguirás, ya son milagros. Rompiendo crisalidas, hay que volar, hay que encontrar su propio futuro. Ay, mariposas, no se aguanten más, hay que crecer, partir y volver. Hacia adelante seguirás, ya son milagros. Rompiendo crisalidas, hay que volar, hay que encontrar su propio futuro.
That was beautiful. That was so good.
Thanks.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I really love that song. It's just like, just so beautiful. And like the visuals that accompany it were so good.
Oh, in that particular part of the movie.
Yeah, in the movie, yeah, it's like
All the mariposas.
yeah when he says "ay mariposas," like the butterflies, just like there's like tons of butterflies. It's just like really beautiful.
I haven't seen it, but I want to. I look forward to it. Heard some of all of it.
Is there some weird echo?
I haven't. Yeah, I'm hearing it. I don't know how to stop.
With us or
Me.
And me.
but who's echoing? When anybody talks or just when Christina's echoing?
Oh. Okay.
And when I talk, it echoes.
Oh.
When it echoes to you.
It's because two people's microphones are on at the same time, so it echoes.
I can't even understand what you said, Marley, because of the echo.
Picking up more microphones.
Why is it? Oh, I think mine stopped.
It's if two people's microphones are on at the same time, it'll echo.
Oh, I had not experienced that before. Mine stopped echoing, and yours stopped echoing. And Sylvia?
Did mine stop echoing?
It did! Yay! Oh my lord, that was crazy. Oh,
Because we were on mute. We were the culprits.
Interesting. Okay, well, I will talk to you while you're on mute and say that was really beautiful. I already said that once, but really it was giving me chills. It was gorgeous. Thank you so much for singing it. Your Spanish sounds lovely, so congratulations on that. I didn't know that you spoke it so well. That's all I'll say.
Do you want to?
I was just gonna say I'm in Spanish, but I don't like I might try my best for the pronunciation, but I'm not on this level. I just
It sounded good to me. It's the mute game now. Okay, good. So we'll move on and we'll come back to y'all. Chris, I see that you've turned your camera back on. Does that mean that you have found something that you would like to share?
I did. I didn't find what I wanted, but I did find something that I could read.
Do it.
Okay. I don't think I've read this one before. Maybe. I don't think so. This is just called The 1980s, which in my mind was the perfect decade. But anyway, I'll just read it and you guys can make up your own minds. Okay. It's called The 1980s. In the 1980s, the world was still recovering from Kent State, Jonestown, and the Munich Olympic massacre. Not surprisingly, the 80s roared in with Lenin's assassination, the Iran hostages, failed rescue attempt, and then negotiated politically planned release under Reagan, not Carter, and Mount St. Helens, not to mention the Rubik's Cube and Pac-Man. There were assassination attempts on the Pope and Reagan, and Diana married the Prince of Wales. AIDS appears, PCs appear, E.T. is released in the theaters, and Michael Jackson releases Thriller. The U.S. Embassy in Beirut is bombed, and the USSR calls for glasnost and perestroika. The Titanic is found, and the Challenger explodes. Chernobyl melts down, and everyone freaks out, rightly so. The world discovers that Imelda Marcos has a lot of shoes. Ollie North goes to court, the US bombs Libya, and Mir is launched by the USSR. Black Monday ruins investors everywhere, and a teenager, Matthias Rust, flies from Finland to Moscow, landing in Red Square. Still to come is an Iranian airliner being shot down by the US, Pan Am Flight 103 being bombed, the Berlin Wall falling, Exxon Valdez, the Romanian leader Nicolae Cusco's execution, and finally Tiananmen Square. I forgot to mention the gas link in Bhopal, India, Reagan's Star Wars defense plan, and DNA being used to convince criminals. But then again, I forgot a lot of other things that happened in that magical screwed up decade. The 1990s heralded the collapse of the Soviet Union, Operation Desert Storm, the end of the Cold War, Rodney King, Waco, O.J. Simpson, Rwanda, Oklahoma City bombing, Unabomber, Mad Cow, death of Diana, sheep are cloned, Clinton impeachment, Columbine, the Euro, and fear of Y2K. Not to mention JFK Jr. dies. Titanic is a big hit in the theaters, and Viagra is released. Here's the thing about the 80s for me. In spite of, or maybe as a direct reaction to, or maybe in spitefulness of all the above mentioned events of the 80s, we had all this music and life and great movies, and costs were still low and people were living their lives. The 1980s was the last decade you could fly safely. The last decade you could buy cheap gas. The last decade you could have politically different opinions from your friends and neighbors and not be politically divided. The last decade you could still feel like the world was big. We weren't all piled on top of each other like hamsters in a cage. There was a lot of hope left. Yes, it was mostly destroyed by the end of the 1990s, but it existed right up to the end. You could turn on TV and watch Comic Relief and see people in rainbow suspenders and red tennis shoes and not think anything weird about that. The 1980s were somehow bright and colorful in spite of all the stuff going down. It wasn't until the 1990s that we saw the darkness approaching. Maybe the 1990s were smarter. Maybe that's why we saw the darkness, but I miss some of the naivete of the 1980s and the wide-eyed wonder of it all. The 1980s may have ruined the 90s, but we didn't know it then. We didn't know we were ruining anything. We were just happy to be living for a reasonable cost. There was a lot of sunlight in the 80s before the hole in the ozone layer was discovered in 1985, that is. Anyway, that's my 2 cents right now. If only it was 1985 and I had all the time in the world again, I'd write more. One of these days, I'll get that DeLorean marketed in 1981 and go back in time with Christopher Lloyd, Back to the Future, 1985. Until then, I'll keep listening to The Alarm, The Call, Joy Division, Depeche Mode, Beastie Boys, Susie Sue, Kate Bush, Talking Heads, The Cure, The Smiths, The Clash, New Order, Jane's Addiction, etc., 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 to remind me of how great those years were. The 1990s were awesome personally as well, but there was something timeless and ethereal about the 1980s that will never be repeated and can't be explained to those who didn't go through it.
Nice. Um, well, I can only speak for myself, and obviously, my experience in the 80s was childhood. So it was all fine. I mean, I knew about all of those things, but maybe not in the moment, obviously, for some of them. Um, so, but I totally see where you're coming from. Um, yeah, the 90s were very different from the 80s. It's true. I think,
I remember meeting a guy in the 80s at the coffee shop that I worked at in Chicago. And, back then I thought of him as this kind of old hippie guy. He'd come in every day and talk to me. And one day he started talking about how he used to like to go jogging every day and do all this, health. He was like a health nut back when he was younger. And now he was, just like didn't do any of that. And I said, what happened? And he said, too much of the 60s. That was his response. And I kind of feel like maybe for a lot of us now, and too much of the 80s, maybe like I didn't understand really. I understood, my brain understood what he meant, but I didn't have the experience at the time to really understand what he was talking about. But that kind of has stuck with me for a long time. But I don't know. I kind of feel like that about the 80s. But anyway, that's just a fun little piece. It's just a little something that I found. It's not what I don't have my internet, and all my stuff is apparently stored on the cloud, which I can't get to right. So
well, I'm glad you shared it because it was delightful and it was a little memory lane and
yeah,
also a little cynical and also a little sad and all of that good stuff that you find in writing. So, well, your writing in particular, but or in good writing. Let's say good. I'll just say good writing in general. So thank you.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Anybody else want to share their experiences with the 80s? Who was
The
alive?
80s for me was about my children's arrival and most of my friends dying of AIDS. So that was the two things about the 80s.
That's tough. Talk about the coming of beautiful things and the horrible death of loved ones. That's pretty intense.
I mean, for me, it was a sweet spot. I was in high school from '86 to 1990, so it was my formative years, and I spent those years going to amazing shows, seeing Jane's Addiction for $5 in basements, and just like, I mean, extremely formative. Yeah, I mean,
To this day, name a movie that happened in the 80s, and Seamus can probably tell you whether it was 85 or 87. Like everything else, a little fuzzy, but like 1980s, you can get it down to the year.
what happened last week?
I was just talking about concert prices the other day, going, man, I bought tickets for New Order or something. I think they were $23, and I thought, man, what a ripoff, at the time. But you just can't get ticket prices for that. I think I saw, what was that? Toad the Wet Sprocket. You remember them? I think I saw $5 at a club in Chicago. It's just lots of $5 and $10 concerts back then.
Absolutely every show that I've ever wanted to go to has either been 21 plus or $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can totally agree on that. Like, I feel like $300 for like concert tickets. It's so expensive.
I think I spent maybe the most I spent on a ticket was $50 to see Radiohead at the Gorge in 2001. I think it was 2001. And that was like a lot of money, $50, come on. But it was worth it.
Now you can spend $50 every week this summer to see a band in Pioneer Square. There's like a bunch of
Shut
amazing
up. It
bands.
costs that much money to see. I thought they were free.
No, those are the cheap tickets, are $50. You can spend $160 for the VIP tickets.
No, thank you. Wow. I had no idea. Well, times they have a changed. Period. Well, memory lane, yes. Okay. Shall we go on then? Let's do it. Okay. Sylvia, shall we come back to you? Are you ready? Okay. If you are speaking, you are muted.
I was just trying to get the world's tiniest piano to
Oh,
appear.
okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. So this song is Eli Eli, which is the poem was written by Hannah Senesh, who was a hero. She was born in Hungary, considered herself Israeli, and was a paratrooper. She fought the Nazis and tried to get people out of Hungary when the Nazis took over that country. And she was actually caught and spent, I think, many days being tortured for information so the Nazis could catch her comrades. And she never told them anything except her name. And finally they shot her, and she was 23. But before that, she had written a number of poems, some of the most celebrated poems in Israel. She wrote them in Hebrew. And so Eli, Eli, it's a very short little poem, and it means, my God, may these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the water, the crack of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. And so I'm going to sing that. Shaloi Gamelulam, Ahov Hayam, Lishvu Shel Hamayim, Barak Hashamayim, Tefillat Hadam, Ahov Hayam, Vishvu Shel Hamayim, Barak Hashamayim, Tefillat Hadam. That's the whole thing.
That's beautiful.
Oh, and the music is by David Zahavi.
I was just gonna say, it sounded like that was you were saying that was her poem, and so that's okay. Set to music by somebody else. Do you know anything about the composer?
No.
Okay. Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you. and back around to the family band now. Here we are. Here.
All right. I think we're ready.
Oh yeah, I just gotta change my capo. I almost forgot.
Wait, what's the name of this one?
It's
Goodness
a
gracious.
It's called Goodness Gracious by the Helly Goats.
Also turned off, like, there was an echo cancellation setting that I had turned off because I didn't want it to mess with anything, but that might have been what was causing the echoes. Go figure. So I turned that back on, so hopefully that helps, but hopefully it doesn't. Does that, can you hear that? Yeah? Okay.
Hello, hello.
I got a driver's side on. I got distribution. I got people in a rut. They know I love them, but they don't know how much. It was an interesting angle to have been laying. You say we're on the same page when you say I should be singing your praises, anxiously waiting for the next note you play. It's crazy. Out of all that I've received, you gave me something that I never knew I needed. I never knew I was frozen until you turned on the heat to reveal oceans of honesty. Though not a drop of confidence, so busy treading just to keep my head above a sinking conscience. It was like I stopped having dreams, started having manifestations. No longer in a state where I can't wait, 'cause I made it. I went from having hope so low to having a surplus. I went from burning my days by to burning daylight with a purpose. Turning virtues into habits, into consciousness. And then I said goodnight for real for once, and it sounded just like this. Good night. Goodness gracious, good night. Good night. Good night. Goodness gracious, good night.
Yay!
Oh, I love it. I love you. I love you. I love you, family.
It's always good to get the band back together again.
They
It.
never do songs without me, so.
I know.
I know. Well, it's that whole, guitar thing, I think. I mean, I'm sure it's you, but it's really.
I know.
I didn't bring my guitar home. This is hers. It belongs to her.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
working on it.
I have a guitar too.
We just need one more and we got a song.
Yeah.
I have multiple guitars at my disposal, and yet, do I play them? No. I have to relearn chords every time I sit down to play.
Yes. Well, right there with you.
I keep meaning to. Anyway, that was lovely. And it sounds like you had an audience in your own home as well.
Dad's visiting from Ohio, and Rory's very tired from the district wrestling meet over in the corner.
Oh, do I get?
There's.
You do some serenading. Oh.
Backup
And
singer.
then let's say hi to
Well,
Pavlinsky.
there's my dad.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome.
A little bit of resemblance.
Yeah.
Both got great. Well,
Huh?
one of us has gray hair.
Both have gray beards.
It's true.
Yeah.
Fun.
Sometimes.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you were able to join as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, John was bummed to miss. He's in there in Bend. I'm sure he's very happy, but
Yes,
out
that's
of
okay.
station, so
There's always next month.
exactly. Except for apparently in the summer.
There's always next month until July. But we can talk about it, you know. We can talk about it. July and August would be probably good months for outdoor events for evening. We will already have our outdoor porch concerts, so that will be a thing that will happen. But anyway, we can talk about it. No pressure. Sylvia, did you have anything else, or Chris, did you have anything else?
I have one more thing, a very short thing I could read, which is probably about a minute. It's very, very short piece. Sylvia, did you have something? If you do, you can go ahead of me. That's fine.
No. That's okay.
That's a no. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
Boop. Boop. Come on. Where's our, okay, there we go. Hit it.
Okay. This one's called Forgotten Once. Forgotten once as a child, abandoned and forsaken, left on the porch steps of a church, terrified and alone. Left there by my parents, who, it seems, had better things to do, busy lives to lead with no room for me. I wept, I moaned, I cried, I was forlorn. I was there for what seemed like hours with no comfort, no contact, no plan. When they came back later to pick me up, they apologized, said they'd lost track of the time. They smiled and laughed, said, "What's the matter? Did you think we were going to leave you there?" I scowled at them, was unforgiving, refused to accept apologies, would not even look at them. I hope they will be more forgiving of me when someday, just for a moment, I forget them too.
I hope it's okay that I laughed. I mean, not about you, but about forgetting them just once. Is that based on a true story?
I think there was some times when I was a kid where my parents just, spaced picking us, there were 3 kids, and my mom was she was a little scatterbrained, and I'm sure there were some times where she just totally forgot. And of course, for me, it was the end of the world. I was like, oh my God, that's it. I live on the front porch of the church now, like that. So,
I think that's
yeah.
another characteristic of growing up in the 80s.
Yes,
Being left somewhere.
exactly. Yes. We were definitely latchkey kids, my sisters and I. But yeah, and then the older I get too, I think when I was thinking about this, I don't remember when I wrote this one, probably in the last couple of years. And my mom did pass away a couple of years ago. So I feel like the older you get to, it's, you grow up, your parents are on your mind, even if I don't talk to my dad very much. But yeah, I think about him, but I know there will be a time when you just stop thinking about, maybe there won't, but I think just briefly things go out of your head, and I already have felt that, I'm not, very old, but the older I get, the more I notice things just disappear from my brain for a while. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if you don't have that regular connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I was ever forgotten as far as I know, but I definitely felt like it, being like the last one to be picked up from after school care. Sad. Yes, that, or daycare or whatever, like did you know? It felt like forever, and of course, it probably was only like 5 minutes after, whatever o'clock, 5:30 or something like that. But yeah, and then when I was able to go home on my own, by the time I was 10, and at home after school, then, well, more in middle school, high school, then I was like, now don't come home. Like I'm okay if you don't come home, and I'm just in my house by myself doing naughty things like watching television. I know, horrors. When I'm supposed to be doing homework. Don't tell my mom. Just kidding. She knows.
I mean, this is a few years ago, but we watched E.T. with the kids, whatever, probably like 5, 8 years ago.
It was
And
a long time ago because I barely remember watching that movie. I know I watched
five,
it. but-
eight, 5, 8, 10.
but there's a
15,
scene
whatever.
where the mom has to like go pick up the older
I know.
boy, and they leave Drew Barrymore home watching TV, and she's like 4 years old. She's like, "I'll be right back."
I know.
I'm like, "Oh my God, she's
I
left
know.
4 years old at home. What?"
So crazy. It was on when I was back east, and we watched much of it, not all of it, because commercials, and then it ends up lasting for a million years. And yes, I totally remember that scene, and I don't remember have ever I don't know, noticing it, I guess, when I first saw it as a kid, because I don't think, I don't know. Anyway, that definitely stood out to me as like, are you kidding? No, you don't do that. But anyway.
Okay, so that seemed really unrealistic to me at the time. I had little kids at that time. Would I or anyone I know have left their 4-year-old alone at home? No.
So this was just Steven Spielberg not having kids at the time.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But he would have had somebody like editing that or like noticing, and they all just gave it a pass, I guess. Like, oh, the audience won't notice. There's an alien, so that's what they're focused on. I don't know. Anyway. Well, thank you, everybody, for all of your wonderful sharing. I am going to stop our recording now because we don't need to record this. So we'll say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye, everybody. But don't leave yet. Goodbye, watching of selves afterwards.